Hello, my name is Jorb, I love gear, and this is the Nord Lead 2. What is it, if you aren't familiar? Well, very conveniently right on the panel, 16-voice 4-output virtual analog lead synthesizer made in Sweden by Clavia. And it came out in 1997. I know what you're thinking. Were synths cool in 1997? To that I respond, I really think so. This one in particular, probably just because I have time and experience with it. But synths are always cool. There's good gears always coming out every year. And these days we have things like Oscillator gaining a lot of steam. The microKORG has been popular for ages. Those are virtual analog. MS-2000, MS-2000R. And virtual analog sometimes gets a bad rap, but I hope, the permeating idea that if it sounds good, it is good, the persisting idea that if it sounds good, it is good, should be the bottom line for an instrument. And I don't know about you, I'm compelled to say that sounds good. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about what this is, what it can do, and I'm going to break that into a few categories. I'm going to quickly go through analog synthesis that it can do, because it is virtual analog. You control it just like any subtractive synth. I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically the options it gets because it's digital, as far as sound generation, so some of the FM options, ring mod. And then I'm going to talk about features that this has, that aren't necessarily part of its sound generation. Things like 4 parts, 4 outputs, and the Midi implementation. And that all summed together is why I think this is still relevant and interesting and worth your time. So, if you have any interest in that, stick around. I like to talk over an arpeggiator, so nobody gets bored or forgets that this is about synths. Okay, one of the first things you're probably thinking is, what did I pay for this, or what does it actually cost? I paid about $500 for this, got it from a great friend of mine, which is a little below what you'll find on the market, but what you'll find on the market currently, today, bam, 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 that's what's on Reverb right now. And last time I checked, it was somewhere between 500 and maybe 800 or 1,000 in various states of condition and cosmetic shape and things like that. This one's a little beat up. Guess what? Doesn't matter. Might even make it cooler. So, that's what we're working with. Something between $500 and $800. And that's not an uncommon range for synths that are coming out these days, okay? Okay. So one of the first things you're probably thinking is, why would I buy something that's 23, going on 24 years old for about the same price I could get something that came out in the last 5 years? And my answer to that, of course, is it's an instrument. It's different. Its personality is different. Its features are different. But just the idea that how can this be as good as something that came out in 2015, 16, 17, 18? And I'm here to show you that it is. It's more than capable in 100 ways. And it has some features that I haven't experienced on anything else. So these top-of-the-line performance features and these ideas that were here and available because this was expensive and top-of-the-line, or whatever you want to think of it as, state-of-the-art, the technological razor's edge. No, fuck! First things first, let's get close to an initialized patch, and I'll reset the really obvious stuff so we hear, or we see what we're hearing. And I'll turn off my reverb and delay. Okay, and focus right here on the oscillators. I'm looking at my capture. If you can't see that, I might blow up the whole panel to make it a little easier for you to see. Anyway, our mixer between 2 oscillators, there are 2 oscillators. I'm going to go through the waveforms. Starting at the bottom, this is a variable pulse width. Sounds good to me, Sawtooth. Sounds good to me, Triangle. A little bit higher in case you're on a phone. Triangles always remind me of the Game Boy. Sine wave, which is an awesome option, and I think this is here and available and sounds the way it does because this is digital. You don't see sine waves often on analog gear, okay? And then Oscillator 2 has the same options of pulse, saw, triangle. Does not have, whoops, I didn't even change the mixer. Pulse, saw, triangle does not have the sine wave, but it also has noise. And separate from the filter, this knob becomes noise color, which is close, sounds to me kind of like a resonant bandpass. Okay, I wish it didn't take up an oscillator slot, but we'll take it if it's there. And of course, with a 2 oscillator synth, what are you going to do? Detune, right? Okay, lovely. I'm going to go back just to oscillator 1 on a sawtooth. Make sure my filter's all the way open. And then we're going to talk about the filter types. There are multiple. So we'll start with 24 dB per octave or a 4-pole filter, which most people would see as the standard or normal. I'm going to slowly open. And then a chord. Let's see. Cool, and then a little bit of resonance, which is super touchy on this knob. So most of the usable range, in my eyes, hope you can see that, I might blow it up, is in this first quarter, this first third. So we're going to go just a little bit higher. A little bit more. It's already pretty high. And a lot of people would point to the filter immediately and say, I can tell that sounds digital. Doesn't sound like an analog filter. It behaves differently, but it still sounds good. And then this is already too much for the filter. And then I'm going to go almost all the way up. Careful of your ears. It's not self-resonating, but it gets like as close as it can in this weird digital way. Excuse me. And that is a complaint that I totally say, yeah, that's fine. But my response, it's not self-resonating, that kind of gives you a sine wave. You already have a sine wave, and it's more stable and tracks keys better than if you worked it out on something with a self-resonating filter. Anyway, let's do 12 dB per octave or a 2-pole filter. A little bit of resonance. And a little more. Too much. Okay, and let's compare them. I think I might cut this together to be really snappy. So here's 24 dB per octave. And 12. I'll do a little bit of resonance. And a little more. You definitely hear the difference there. There's a knob for distortion, which I'm only showing with the filter because I only hear it with the resonance. Okay, let's listen to the interesting options. We have a high pass. It is resonant, which isn't typical. I wish it was separate from the low pass, but we'll take it. And then there's a band pass, which you aren't familiar with. I'll show you a little graphic from the manual here. A specific band goes through and gets swept, and then a weird one, notch plus low pass. I don't know if there's precedence for this existing on other gear, on other synths, on other analog synths, but I think it's interesting, and again, I'll show you a graphic from the manual. Think of a low pass, but just before the cutoff point, a big empty spot, a big notch missing a frequency. So let's listen. Weird, right? So you get the inverse band plus a normal low pass. And I don't know if they tried to do notch on its own and it wasn't musical or what, but a little resonance. Cool and interesting features. Okay, of course, you've got envelopes. I'm going to quickly work out a shape on both of these. Add some velocity sensitivity. Back down. Lovely. Okay, that's all pretty normal stuff for subtractive synthesis. I'm not going to go into the depth of the LFOs. Here they are. You know what they do. You know what, though? I will talk about envelope 2 can also be applied to an arpeggiator. So it has different sources, filter, amp, and pitch of both, but it also has an arpeggiator, which you heard in our intro. I wish it didn't take up one of the slots of the LFOs, but we'll take it if it's there. Okay, quickly do 2 pad sounds and 2 bass sounds or monophonic sounds to show what the analog options are like. This is patch 44. It was in our intro. Okay, I'm sure you're hearing the one very interesting trick here, and that's pitch modulation coming up, and that's only on one oscillator. So here's oscillator 1. Not there. Here's oscillator 2. Okay, I'm going to show you what that is with the mod envelope here. You know how envelopes work. They sync with your key press. This is just attack and decay. So I'm going to make it positive, and we'll listen to that first. Okay, we're probably familiar with that, but negative is what we were hearing. So think of your just decay envelope, right? But then that's getting subtracted. So think of it like backwards. Is it helpful to you? Who knows? Okay. That's our one little trick. And if we take it off oscillator 2, you can tell this is the interval is different. So this is just oscillator 1. As I blend from 1 into 2, it's as if I was pressing these 2 notes on one that's tuned to the keyboard. What is that interval? I don't know, but it sounds good. Okay, and then I'm going to go all the way up. These 1 dot patches are all off the expansion card. This is patch 1.1 on the expansion card. I'll pop it out and show you. Wow, look, B-roll, how cool. Relic of a bygone era, obsolete technology. This patch is the default on there. It has completely blown me away. It has a wonderful sound. Love it. Okay, and if you're keen-eared, you'll notice there's definitely some modulation, okay? So I'm going to turn that off on the envelope, which is slow. LFO2 is just triangle. It's slow. Pitch modulation, LFO1, also set to a triangle right now. It's on pulse width. Those are now off. Okay. Less exciting, but there's still something there, and that's this unison mode. So here it is with what we were hearing so far. And here it is without. Okay, I'm sure you've heard the term unison, you're familiar with it. Here on the Nord, what they do, every time you press one note, it goes to 2 voices. One panned left, one panned right, and they're detuned. And the amount of detune is variable, I believe here, yep, in the menu. So this is it all the way up. Let's show these. Oops, I believe I have it off. Yep, now it's on. And this is all the way at 1. Not super different. It's a pretty limited range, but you get the same effect you would get from chorus, a stereo separation from little pitch wavering. I think that's a very interesting implementation. It does cut your voices on one poly patch down to 8. Let's talk about the other voice modes while we're here and talking about it. Mono. And then what Unison does here is it gives you 4 voices to each side. Legato is just like mono, except you don't reset the envelope until you release your first key. I'm sure you knew that too. Okay. Now some actual bass patches. I wrote down 2, 7. I like Unison off for these, honestly. Sounds to me more like that's what I think of when I think of synth bass, I guess. I normally think of just one oscillator for synth bass. Maybe SH101 type thing, which doesn't mean anything really. Oscillator 2 is an octave higher. Listen to them both. Back to one oscillator. Those mistakes are staying in. I'll move it a little higher in case you're on a phone. Just because I played with it there. The pitch bend is this spring-loaded, like wooden trough wedge. And let's get these up. That's all you get. I think that's an interesting feature. You'll see that on some of the other Nord stuff. I think it's cool. Not a selling point, but cool to have. Okay. 66, I think, is the other one. Which I always thought was a joke on, like, Devilfish, because this is the 303 sound, and it uses the distortion, and we're on a normal 24 dB filter. Get a little more gain because the resonance takes away so much, and the panel is not reflecting most of what you're hearing. Okay. I feel like none of that was good, but I'll show you something. This is as good a time as any to mention there's velocity sensitivity on this, but you can see it's not lit up here on the filter, right? But it's obviously doing something to the filter. There's a morph option, which can be applied to velocity, or here on the wheel. If I put it on the wheel, we get nothing from different velocities. But we can hear from 0 to 100 what it would be doing if I was doing it 0 or 127 velocity, okay? Sounds like it's opening up the filter. So morph can change any parameter over a range. I'm not going to show you how to set it up. It's a little complicated for now. But just know that if you're like, you know what? The wheel can't go any of the places I really want it to go. Morph can be anything. Literally any of these parameters. Okay. Now, For FM, I'm just going to start with an initialized patch and then make it from there, because I think that's more valuable of a demonstration, okay? But we're going to do the traditional-ish FM thing. We're going to start with a sine wave, and oscillator 2 is on a triangle, and then sync is on right now. But let's turn up the FM amount, which affects oscillator 1, because it's how much is oscillator 2 affecting oscillator 1. We're going to start with this is the pitch of oscillator 2. I'm going to turn it all the way down, and let's listen. That's just a pitch LFO. I'm sure you know that. Okay, FM wacky. What I think is really interesting is to put that on our mod envelope. So we're going to do just decay on the FM amount. I'm going to make it pretty high. There's a little more decay. That to me sounds a lot like the sort of thing you'd get from a DX7. Let's make it really slow, put my delay and reverb back in. I got lost. Very cool. And people are all, wow, how innovative is the Op6, the Korg's Op6 to have a filter with FM. Well, this is not even close to proper FM, especially not anything with 6 operators. This is 2 operators, and they can only be pretty much set up in one way. But we have a filter. That's pretty sick. And it was 1997. Come on, guys. That's lit. Okay. That's done. Let's talk about ring mod, because it didn't come up, and it's kind of like FM. I find that ring mod is kind of hard to demonstrate, especially on this, and I don't know how useful it is. I say that. Somebody's going to be like, oh, didn't you think about this sound? Listen, I'm not a pro. Okay. So let's listen to... Here's oscillator 1, just a sawtooth. Here's oscillator 2. Let's turn it off ring mod. They're identical right now. We're going to turn on ring mod. Listen to oscillator 1. Not any different. Oscillator 2. It's weirder, okay? And I'm going to slowly move its pitch down. It's hard to demo, okay? And most of what you're hearing, again, is going to be on oscillator 2. Oscillator 1 is normal, and what you get, this knob, instead of FM amount, when you're in ring mod mode, it just becomes tuning for oscillator 1. Let's go just an octave up and see if that sounds any different. There's 2. 3. Most effective when you blend it in, I think. Okay, I talked about that for way too long, but I think it's interesting. You don't see it on a lot of things. I talked about that for way too long, but it's interesting, and I don't really know a good way to explain it, okay? Because I think just thinking about it mechanically, that you're modulating the amplitude and the waves with each other, it doesn't lead you to understand what it's going to sound like. Because this is almost like individual phasing. Because that makes sense when they're in tune with each other. Anyway, I gotta cut that short. That was most of my time. Ring mod is weird. Okay, I'm going to do 2 demonstrations in tandem here, but I'm going to click through. If I do shift and up, you go 10 at a time instead of just 1 or 2. These P, I believe, is for percussion. This is the one I like. Distracted. This is 8 individual synth patches, each with their own group of keys, okay? So, is that easy to see? So those 2 black notes define our group, and these 3 work on the same patch. And if it cares about the pitch or not, depends on what you have set up like a normal synth patch. And these 3 are that group of 4, okay? And so let's open the filter on this one the way we get here to edit it, because you would probably assume, well, if I change this, will it change everything? It'll change the one you have selected. So when I press a black note, see it says 4. This group is 3, 2, 1. Let's open the filter on this. But these don't change, right? Because I'm still pointed to group 4. So interesting. It doesn't have to be percussion, and I don't have good examples of it. I tried, but it wasn't ever getting to a place that felt like a good demonstration of it. But you can set this up to have 8 sounds on one part, or one patch, really. Insane cool feature. And I bring that up because similarly, we have 4 parts, okay? And I demoed that in the beginning, but you can do multiple at a time, okay? So here's one. I'm just going to hold down my sustain pedal, actually, and then play. Whatever I want with another part. I can go back to 1 and turn off the sustain pedal. And if you press more than 1 at a time, so let's do, if you press more than 1 at a time, see C and A are both lit up. Again, I'm going to have to blow this up. And I play 1 chord. You'll play them both at a time. Of course, they're still dividing the 16 voices between them, okay? So it's not 16 per. You're dividing it all between them, but it used cleverly, and I don't want to say it like that, but used with that in mind, it's really not that huge of a hindrance. Especially, you could do all 4 at a time, and they have some good examples of the power of that. And I'll quickly show you an organ sound. Each part is a different drawbar. So here's A. So here's A, B, C, and D is just the click. I'm going to make it mono, and then keep it on. Crazy, right? So we're going to go back out of performance mode here into where we were. And you can't just layer them, you can also do splits, okay? So that A and B are to the left of the split. And C, since I don't have C or D selected, there's nothing to the right of split, but here's what C sounds like. If I pick, actually I'm going to turn off its arpeggio. If I turn on A and C, to the left is A, to the right is C. That's cool. And I'm glad I did that on accident because it's just reminding me. So if you're in keyboard split like this, up here, nothing. The second half is nothing. Of course, you can change the point. You can send this to a different MIDI channel. You can point it wherever you want, and it can control a different synth. So maybe I'm here and I have a Mother 32 on top of here, and I want to control it with the right side and the left side do something else. You can do that. That's sick. Those MIDI features are sick. For 1997, that's so cool. Okay, what I'm going to do now, oh God, I hope it can do it. I'm going to work out a little performance where I sequence all 4 parts of this with my MPC, and then I let it all play live with MIDI, okay? So it's going to be a while while I work out something cool, but I'll be back. Hold on. Don't go away. Don't go away. And here's just quickly how easy it is to change MIDI channels. I'm on part 1. I hold Shift. Oops, I missed. And I press this button to get to MIDI channels. Just up, down, or off. 2 is on 2, 3 is on 3, 4 is on 4. So MIDI channel 1 through 4 going into the MPC. They're going to get sequenced on tracks 1 through 4. I'll come back when I got something pretty. This is weird. But I think it kind of gets my point across. And I'm going to mute tracks over here. I hope you can see this. I'm going to have to blow this up too. But it's all sequence MIDI. I can change it however I want. I can even change the patches on here. No restrictions on that. And that to me is pretty powerful. If you think of it as a performance tool, I'm going to turn everybody down. Holy shit. If you think of it as a performance tool, you can have 4 synth sounds here ready to go and either play them separately or all at the same time or let one hang off. It's just, I know this, I fumbled the demonstration a little bit. But the power here is pretty insane. And change the octave of it whenever you want. Nothing's locked in. It's all flexible. It's all malleable after it's recorded. Okay, and I didn't do it now. I'm just running, see these orange, should be red. Gotta get the aesthetic, come on. These 2 orange cables, it's just out A and B. That's what I'm using. There are a bunch of out modes. You can send each of these to a different output, and then through a different effect, and then through a channel in a mixer and control them separately. So instead of sequencing the MIDI here, instead of controlling, muting the MIDI here, I could just be muting 4 tracks of a mixer. Or if I'm using Unison, I can have A and B stereo at the left and C and D stereo at the right, or there's all sorts of options. It's so flexible. So this can really be 4 mono synths, or 2 polysynths, or 4 polysynths, or you have so many options. Again, you are sharing these 16 voices, but you have 16 synth voices that can be anything. They can be drums, mono, FM, traditionally subtractive. It's really, really is flexible for it. I'm so impressed that this came out when it did. Anything else on the market, what was available in the 90s? Romplers, maybe the Axis Virus, depends on what year we're at. This is so cool to be like, you know what? Let's make, here's the secret. Are you ready for this? This product that came out in 1997 has a lot of the Prophet 5 presets in it. And I'm going to show you one now, only because I mentioned it, because I think it's sick. I think is the J's. I'm going to do another video just on this, so don't worry. A lot of the Prophet 5 presets are in this. That wasn't a hot commodity in 1997, but Clavia knew, the people working at Nord, with Nord, on Nord, whatever, knew that was still what was relevant. That's sick. Okay, so that'll be a separate video. A bunch of the Prophet 5 presets are on this, but just to drive that point home, this is almost anachronistic in the features it has and the design direction it had in 1997. So cool. Alrighty, lightning speed outro. I've done too many and they're all too long. So I'm going to summarize super fast. The sound generation options on this are great. The subtractive controls are exactly what you want. In some cases, an extra step. The mod envelope is sick. The random shapes on the LFO is sick. The FM capability is excellent. Being multi-timbral is a huge plus. A lot of people surely wish for that on any other synth they have. And if you're sequencing it with a hardware sequencer or a DAW, what a powerful thing to have access to. Effectively 4 synths. And because this has 4 individual outputs, even more than that. Okay. So, my whole point, this is such a cool synth to have come out in 1997. And the features on it are things I wish we had on synths today, especially at this price point. So, if you can get a good deal on this, I hope you do. My name is Majorb. I love gear. If you have any questions, launch them in the comments. I love interacting with anybody who watches these. I'm so grateful that anybody thinks what I have to say is worth anything. 350 subs now. Bless you all. I love gear. That includes the Nord League 2. Happy New Year. Best of luck. See you around.